I'm with Selenic Medical, CEO of Selenic Medical, and I'm here to talk about technology that keeps you moving, specifically that implant that you may have gotten to keep your mobility in the first place. The unmet need here is prosthetic joint infection. Prosthetic joint infection is one of the biggest problems associated with the implants, and really it's because of biofilm. Now, everyone here is an expert on biofilm because you brush it off your teeth every day, right? Now, antibiotics don't work. Think of trying to just gargle Listerine for hours. You're still going to need to brush your teeth. Now, that's not enough. You're going to need to floss your teeth. Well, when you do that on an implant, and that is the standard of care after you've dosed with antibiotics, it's a surgical intervention to open that site, equivalent to your mouth, to get at that. Once you have a prosthetic joint infection, there's going to be an average $500,000 cost of care, and there's a high mortality rate. Now, what I mean by that is 26% within 5 years will have that limb amputated, okay, above the knee. 27% in between prostate and breast cancer will end up dying within that 5-year time period. So there's over a 50-50 chance you will not have your limb or your life within 5 years of that infection. The current standard of care, kind of described a little bit, it starts with antibiotics. They're going to dose weeks and weeks of antibiotics. 235,000 of them will take that, and 89,000 will fail to cure that infection. Then they're going to do a washout. Washout is the simplest toothbrushing exercise with flossing. DARE is next. Think of a dental procedure. You have an infection. They're going to go in and remove excise infected tissue. That's what we're talking about. Now, imagine that in your hip or your knee or your shoulder or spine or anything else. It's 5 to 7 days hospitalization minimum. And like I say, I mentioned the over 50% failure rate. Next, they're going to go out and do a revision. Think of that as a tooth extraction. They're going to remove the implant. They're going to then maybe put a spacer or come up with some other alternatives to improve the infection, the reinfection rate, and they're going to amputate. I mentioned the numbers there. And again, many of these are high morbidity patients. The death rate's high. They also have comorbidities like cancer, diabetes, obesity. Now, what we do is something you're very familiar with as well. If you have a phone charger, put it on there, that's an alternating magnetic field induction charger, okay? What we're doing is generating a non-invasive alternating magnetic field with a shaped coil. Kind of see the fun little wiggly lines here. If you think of northern lights wiggling, that's basically what's happening. It concentrates energy on the surface of the implant. That energy, just like a hot wire, generates heat. That heat is thermal medicine that you can dose time and temperature like any other drug. We do have 2 U.S. patents issued already, plus 7 countries. Those are spread across 6 more patents pending, and actually about 5 more that are about to be filed. One of the things we had to prove early on is that we were not disruptive to the current standard of care use of antibiotics. We didn't really expect, and we were thrilled to see when this chart came out, showed that we actually have a magnifying effect of the use of antibiotics. In part, in fact, you can see it in the red line there. Immediate heat kill, antibiotics, heat kill, antibiotics. Now, you can choose what level of antibiotics to use. You can choose what level of heat to use. But either way, they go step in hand. There's several things going on. You're disrupting the biofilm. You're opening the lattice of the biofilm. At a modest temperature, you're activating dormant bacteria that are nice, happy, and sleepy under a nice biofilm. There's several things going on at once. But we've shown that it magnifies it. In effect, we've also shown that it extends across multiple weeks with a 1-dose treatment. Now, our magic is shaping the field. I mentioned that phone charger. Easy to do when you have a flat back of a phone. You put it to a flat back of a coil in that base. What is really hard to do is apply it to very complex geometry. A knee implant is one of the most complex single implants in the body. Incredibly convoluted space. We made a really crazy, stupid decision early on. We thought 1.3 million knees, big market, we're going to go after it. Took us 4 years to solve that problem. Going from simple rings, washers, and BBs, took us a while to shape that field. Once we figured out how to shape the field there, things got a lot easier after that. Once you shape the field for a knee implant, and we started on a DePuy Attune knee on the top left, we tested it on other implants from major vendors, and you got a very, very similar, even controlled heat dose effect. We also figured out along the way that you have the ability to dial that dose up and down. Once you can treat at a high level dose and get it a tight temperature range, you can also lower it, it gets even tighter. Basically, we have the ability to do what the body does, which is treat infections with thermal medicine. That's what a fever is. We can disrupt bacterial activity at a couple degrees above body temperature. We can get to very acute treatment, 75 or 80 degrees above body temperature. There's a couple other nuances about it. Because of the skin effect, the way those alternating magnetic fields work, it's heating just on the surface, the outer 60 microns, called the skin effect. Then it dissipates in the metal. So you can get it hot, and then it dissipates very quickly. So you can get kind of a flash heating effect, and you get the benefit of thermal medicine, but it reduces the negative effects as quickly as possible. But because you have the chance to dial it up and down, the physician can decide what level dose is appropriate for the patient severity as well as the patient physiology. Let's face it, a 300-pound obese male has a lot more blood tissue and insulating parameters than a 90-pound old man. So it's based on body temperature chemistry, but the power is to be able to put it in the hands of a physician to decide what's appropriate. Our clinical and reimbursement model, and you see the device here, it's really not terribly different than this podium here in size. There's an arm that assists in placement, and you see here, this is kind of a post-op kind of procedure here that shows the implant going over the knee site. Very similar, the hip site, picture the patient on their side, you can place it over there. Tibial nail, very similar to the knee, it's just longer to fit the leg. So the implant transducer is designed to fit and form a field over the implant site, but it's non-contacting. It can be used post-op, pre-op. It can be used on a prophylactic use case. We're starting with those DARE procedures, those very severe infection cases, and then we'll work back. We'll use NTAP reimbursement the first 3 years, and then apply for a CMS code. The market is large. We've done actually a breakdown of the total number of cases. There's about 130,000 potential cases in the US alone with knees, hips, shoulders, and modest penetration of tibial nails and then spinal fusion. It's a large case at about $7,500 per case. It gets really big very quickly. You can target it by implant site, by physician type. Hip and knee surgeons want the hip and the knee coil first. You have the extremity surgeons, peripheral surgeons, whatever. So partially what we're doing is targeting the implant sites and the physician, what they want to treat for the infections next. It's also a pretty nice case what we're doing right now. There's a nice little gravity well in Dallas. We're located in Dallas. Of physicians who do the DARE procedures. Surprisingly, there's an awful lot of orthopedic technology work going on in LA, for example, but there's not a few practices that do it. So we've identified the top 36 sites that do the most heavy volume of cases. We're going to start there. We're going to do the 3 feasibility sites, which we just started. Then we're going to get into the pivotal trial sites, and then we're going to keep those devices there and expand from there. The devices are ready for clinical trials. We're starting recruiting right now at the first site in Dallas in Plano, Texas, North Dallas suburb, then Fort Worth, and the third site is probably going to be Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we expect a de novo path. We are FDA breakthrough device, and we're excited about getting started. We are at the first feasibility trials here. Most of the work is that big yellow line. That's adding hips, shoulders, tibial nail to the knee transducer. We are a Johnson & Johnson portfolio company. Other investors included Shangbei, Epic Venture Partners, Pier 70, and a variety of others, and we're excited to have their partnership. Happy to tell you about the Solenic Medical story. Would love to follow up. Feel free to catch our website on that QR code or follow up after the event. Thank you.